As the world will tomorrow celebrate Workers' Day, some trade unions have rejected suggestions that they have become irrelevant because they are no longer capable of adequately representing workers. Some studies have shown that globally trade union membership has been dropping over time with trade unions' inability to organize and service workers. On the eve of International Workers' Day, some labour experts say the COVID-19 pandemic has also exposed and aggravated the existing challenges. For South Africa in particular, the state of the economy, challenges like load shedding have also been a nightmare for both workers and employers. Perhaps to take this discussion further, we are joined via Zoom by the President of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, Ruth Ntlokotse, to weigh in on the celebration of Workers' Day ahead of tomorrow. Ruth, good afternoon. Thank you for your time here on the SABC.
Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Ruth, on the eve of Workers' Day, that's obviously set to take place in just a few hours, there's been a lot of challenges that South African citizens are facing currently. How are you marking Workers' Day as SAFTU tomorrow? Let's start there.
Okay. No, thank you so much for inviting us. Perhaps let me first start by reminding the viewers that tomorrow as SAFTU, we will be celebrating our Workers' Day in 5 provinces, in Welkom, Fedi Mayor Hall, Ladysmith in the Western Cape Town Hall, Kucha Development Center at Gqeberha, Ayo Taip Mall in Mokopane, Limpopo, and then our main May Day celebration, it will be in Durban, at Durban Conference Center, which is normally known as Jesus Dome. The reason why our main May Day will be celebrated is in Durban is on the basis that we are celebrating we'll be commemorating 50th anniversary of the 1973 Durban strike. We felt that it would be important that as a federation, we need to reflect and look back the role played by workers during that particular period. And we know for sure that was during the apartheid era, but we know that workers from Durban, they were able to pull through, and that led to the 1977 Vehan Commission that was summoned by the Department of Minister of Labour at that particular moment. So our primary focus for today is to tell workers that we owe our existence to workers, the role played by workers at a particular moment. Of course, reflecting on some of the challenges that you've also reflected, that there's high rate of unemployment, and we know issues of casualization, informal workers, gig economy, and it's not easy for the trade union to organize in that particular sector. I think the primary focus also is for workers to reflect as to how do we make it the point that 23%, because of about 77% of workers are not joining the trade union. How do we make it the point that we make the trade unions to be a place where workers will feel comfortable, and the trade unions will be a place where workers will be able to speak on issues that are affecting workers in general? I mean, if you can look at some of the challenges that are confronted with, issues of centralized bargaining, it's under attack. We've seen in the recent past how the public sector wage negotiations processes went through. How do we make it the point that workers, even those that are informal, casual sectors, we speak to their issues as well? I think that will be the primary focus of our May Day celebration in all those 5 provinces, so that we can be able to make it a point that workers must know that the trade unions speak on their behalf.
Ruth, thank you for those sentiments. I'm glad you brought up the issues faced in terms of centralized bargaining when it comes to the wage negotiation process, and also just on the backdrop of, what South Africa is experiencing to date in terms of a lagging economy, unemployment, amongst other issues. And we look at the issue of membership and representation. How are you going to mitigate against some of those challenges during the change in times? We're also looking at the introduction of technology, amongst other things, which is changing the landscape, the playing field for workers.
One thing that we've picked up, especially going to the first issue that we spoke about of centralized bargaining, I think it will be important that as trade unions, we need to reflect as to whether are we still getting value from the centralized bargaining, looking at how employers are approaching the centralized bargaining. In the recent past, we've observed, even on the private sector, that employers, they don't want to engage on any other social conditions. They simply go there with arrogancy and only engage on wages, and wages that does not even mitigate the impact that workers are confronted with. So I think these are some of the issues that we need to confront them. As trade union, we know in the past that issues of centralized bargaining, they were meant to benefit all workers. Are we still getting value for that centralized bargaining? And in any event, the discussion will come other way. What form of a strategy that workers need to utilize in ensuring that even those employees that are worse off, they are catered by the kind of negotiations that will be taking place. Because you know what employers are normally doing in the recent past, even those that can afford, they simply go there and hide behind those employers that are not affording. Hence, we are saying that we need to have a discussion as to whether the centralized bargaining, is it still the possible or necessary vehicle that as workers we need to rely upon. And looking at the challenges that we are confronted with as South Africa, like I said, that there's deindustrialization, and the manufacturing sector, which is the main hub in ensuring that they create employment to the economy. We've seen how manufacturing from the 1994 dispensation, that currently it's sitting at around 11%. And as a result of that, we are seeing the high increase of the service sector. And the service sector, that's where informal workers are based. And that's where workers' conditions they are very, very much exploited in that sector. How do you make it a point that as trade unions, we organize, considering the fact that some of the trade unions, we don't even go to an extent of organizing informal workers? So is it not high time that we need to have a discussion that make it a point that irrespective of whether you are coming from formal or informal sectors, workers must be organized? Fortunately, from the SABC side, we do have the structure that is called the National Working Committee, the structure that needs to incorporate even the informal workers as well. And I must also indicate that we haven't done enough in ensuring that we bring those workers on board so that they can be able to speak on their behalf. So these are some of the challenges, these are some of the things that this May Day must reflect and give us direction.
Ruth.
And then more importantly, what we are bringing to workers, we are saying that workers need not to stay far from their trade unions, because we've seen that there's a bit of a social distance between the trade unions and the workers, to such an extent that the most important component of a worker control is slowly fading away, to such an extent that workers are no longer having a control in terms of how their trade unions should operate. So there are multiple of issues that this May Day celebration will be looking at.
No, absolutely, Ruth. We cannot also ignore the strides that have been taken. I'm glad you've spoken about the informal economy and also protecting the most vulnerable, because they've been particularly hit during the COVID-19 pandemic and remain the most vulnerable. So assessing conditions, assessing your work to date, I wonder in conclusion if you could speak to some of your most significant achievements as a trade union in South Africa, where to from here as well.
We are saying that irrespective of the conditions that we're confronted with, from 2008 financial meltdown, where we've seen the number of trade unions, like I said, that currently we are sitting at around 23% of workers that are not being organized. We've seen some of the gains that we've made as trade union. I can just mention the gain that was scored by one of our biggest trade union now recently. I think it was on the 18th of April, where we've managed to win at the highest court in the land, where employers would utilize the scab labor during our strike, that the Constitutional Court was very much firm in terms of stopping that conduct. So these are some of the gains that we can be able to articulate, and even the utilization of I think the very same NUMSA, they warn against the utilization that after the Section 158B, where workers after working for a certain duration, their terms and conditions must be equal to those that are permanent. I think these are some of the gains that we can be talking about, that amid the challenges that we are confronted with, we can still do more, but the fragmentation of labor, these are some of the challenges that are making the progress in terms of advancing our gain to be as slow as possible. So the message for tomorrow is that let's come together as workers. let's make it the point that workers, they give direction to their trade unions.
Ruth, thank you for your time and thank you for those sentiments. I mean, there's so much more to explore. Perhaps this can serve as a conversation starter for the work that has been done and also where to from here. But we'll leave it there for now. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC. Ruth Ntlokotse.
No, thank you so much. Workers must join us tomorrow.
Okay, Ruth, thank you for your time. Again, just ahead of Workers' Day in just a few hours, 1st of May, Ruth Ntlokotse, president of SAFTU, joining in the discussion, weighing in some of the sentiments, looking at whether we have fulfilled the promises for Workers' Day and beyond. So we'll leave that conversation there.